I've only been here 20 years.
Oh, my.
Call the meeting back to order. Next item is Judy.
Judy Hardig, 106 and a half North Cody Road, which is above the River Pub, for anybody who doesn't know where that is. And I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the LeClaire Community Library. And we have two items to bring up to you. And one, I think, is just a misunderstanding, miscommunication. When I introduced also our director, Susan Mannix. And when we offered her a package, it included 2 weeks vacation from the day she started. And those were in our minutes of December 14th that we did that. And when Susan came over for orientation with Ed, he told her that she was not entitled to that, so she has not had any vacation. And I think maybe we could just get that straightened out.
What's the well, it wouldn't be union contract. She's not in the union. But what's the?
She's not union.
Yeah, that's it. It wouldn't be union contract.
She's not union, no.
As far as department heads, how does that go, Ed?
It runs in the policy manual, which would be 2 weeks after a year, which is the standard.
So you have to be here a year to get a vacation?
Yep.
Well, how about if you give her some years that you don't take?
Usually buys those back, I think, don't you?
Okay, but how does that work? Because the library board goes and enters into the contract with the librarian. They set the pay scale. How can the vacation be different than what they offer in a contract?
They don't set the pay scale. You do.
Yeah,
You
we
set the pay scale. And you, as a department head, she is under the same thing as all the other department heads.
Well, actually, the trustees set the salary that we offered her, which was a great deal less than Wanda was making, because we wanted to make sure we were a good fit. And to make up for that difference, even though Susan has much more experience in education, she was short on salary. So the 2 week vacation was kind of to ease that situation, and that was the decision that the board made.
Yeah, but the council sets everything for department heads. She is department head of the city, no different than any other department heads. So she shouldn't get anything different than anybody else.
Yeah, why didn't you come to the city before you would make a contract?
Well, our long-standing, before my time, conversation and about having our ordinance that we run our.
Oh, yeah.
So that is why we felt that we could go ahead with this decision, because we have that ordinance backing us up.
I think our attorney has answered that question, and the ordinance that's in there right now has been brought up by the council to change. And we have attorney's opinions that we can do that.
Okay. Well, I don't want to.
We just soon work it out. We just soon not mess with all that. But
exactly.
you can if you want. I mean, it's.
Well, I don't. I'm just saying that. So I'm going to go ahead, since we're already in over our head with ordinances, with our second request, which I had mentioned to you folks on a Saturday during budgeting when Susan and I were here, and said that we intended to give her a 6-month bump in salary, since everything that she does has turned out to be wonderful. And just as an example of the kind of work that she does just every day, when she turns in a purchase order and all the work that has to be done to make that in order to meet your guidelines, this last one took her 8 hours to complete. And so I don't want you to think she's sitting over there with her feet up on the desk. I think everyone here is aware that she has, in a very short period of time, brought the library into a different era than it had been. And so we intend to give her a bump. And we would say the reason we don't have an amount this time is because in our September meeting we did not have complete figures on our budget so that we could make that determination. So then we thought, all right, this is great because now we can come in and consideration to you and your feelings that we'd let you know ahead of time.
If it's different than what the council okayed, it can't happen.
Well, I think what your words to us were at the time when Susan and I were here, that you were only interested in the bottom line. So that's how we've been.
The salaries were okayed by the city council for that budget. Those salaries are that way until the next budget. They do not change.
Okay, well, let's, so that would be the 1%. Is that what you're
Right.
talking about?
Whatever it was.
Two.
I go have it in front of me.
It's 2%.
It was one.
It was two.
Contract was one.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That was for, and I think the same thing went for salaried, wasn't it? Didn't it match? Did the salary match except for, I think, something to do with insurance, but other than that, it was a match.
It was 1%, which was
Yeah.
Right.
identical to the contracts.
Yeah, I
But
don't
my
have it- I don't have it
understanding-
right in front of me. I wish I had known what this was going to be about. I could have had some stuff in front of me here, but I don't.
Well,
And
the
by,
other,
and by the way, the next time that you want to address the council, you need to tell the council or tell Ed
'Cause I
what you
have
want to
nothing.
talk about so the council would have that information ahead of time.
got
I
nothing
will do
going.
that.
That'd be good.
Be happy to.
I think you were told that, but you didn't do that.
No, Ed asked me what it was going to be about, and we were still deciding on what we were going to do, except for the vacation request. And so there wasn't much more that I could tell him at that point.
Okay, well, next time I won't okay it unless you do have something down, so the council has an idea what you're going to talk about.
I certainly agree with that at this point.
Okay?
So, so I just wanted to, my understanding was also that the employee gets a 6-month bump, a new employee.
Whatever that is, I don't.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
And so if that was the case, wouldn't Sue be eligible for that 6-month bump since she's a new employee, if nothing else?
As of July 1, she got a 1% increase.
But, and no one has received any further monies?
Pardon?
There has been no raises anyplace else?
No, there's only been 1% what the contract was agreed upon, and that's what the department heads get also.
Okay, but what about, is there not a policy where a new employee gets a 6-month bump?
Ed?
If you're a union member and you're subject to the wage matrix, they have movements within the wage matrix. So after 6 months, yes, you're entitled to one. After a year, after 2 years, after 3 years, that type of thing. A department head is subject to the council's, determination. So,
Okay,
Answer your
so
question.
it's, yes, it did. Thank you.
And I think, see, there's a union contract, and they're set in on that.
Right.
They negotiate that, and boom, that's it. It's in writing for however many years they did, which was 5 years, I think, this time. But there are other things that management gets that the union wouldn't get, and there was a benefit, like in insurance, I think. So I don't know exactly what that was, but there was a difference in insurance premiums based over a 5-year period.
I see.
That would be less than employees would pay.
Okay. Well, at this point then, since we've entered into the ordinance discussion, I'm going to have our ordinance expert take over, and that will be Terry.
You've entered into our ordinance thing?
Terry Applegate, 118 North Cody Road. I'm not sure what the word expert means, but I have a few questions. Are we not operating under ordinance number 565?
at this
Is that
present
the number?
time.
Yes.
Okay, well then, let me quote Ordinance 565, 4-1.0106, Organization of the Board. Under item number 4 dash, let me move you down one, 4-1.0107, Powers and Duties of the Board. Item number 3, to direct and control all affairs of the library. To authorize a librarian, this is number 6, I'm just going to hit the ones that are pertaining to this subject matter, to make purchases of books, pamphlets, magazines, periodicals, papers, maps, journals, etc. Limits set by the board. And then jumping down to number 9, to have exclusive control of the expenditure of all funds allocated for library purposes by the council, and of all monies available by gift or otherwise for the erection of library buildings and all other monies belonging to the library, including fines and rentals collected under the rules of the board. You are correct. You, the city council, decides who's on a board. You have control on who sits on a board. You have control of the budget and how much money is budgeted to the board, but the board decides how that money is spent. And that is why Judy was up here. And it was our understanding when we were interviewing for a candidate for this position that we set the dollar amount and the vacation pay. If we had known the vacation pay wasn't going to start for a year, the dollar amount would have been different. So we've come before you to ask you if you would consider implementing that 2-week starting now.
I'll reiterate what I just said. The council passed the salaries for the year. You do whatever, you can go up to the top of that salary. If you don't want to pay that, that's up to the board. But you cannot go over or deteriorate from what the council has set for each department head. The library is a part of the city, and she is a department head. She does not get anything over and above what has been decided by the council per the contract.
And we're asking you to reconsider that at this point due to the circumstances involved.
Well, I can tell you now, I won't let it go through. It's not going to change because we're setting up a precedent that we do not want to get into.
It doesn't change the bottom dollar of the budget amount.
Terry, I just told you, unless the council goes 5-0 or 4-1, it's not going to happen. It's not going to change what the council has set in writing, what happens every year, and what the department heads get. And there's no reflection against Sue's ability, because she has done a fantastic job. But that's no different than when we hire a new public works supervisor. He did not get anything up until he got exactly what the contract stated, and that's what he got. He didn't get any vacation until he was here a year.
But did you write that contract? I mean, who decided what that contract was?
The council did.
Here,
This body.
we set the wages.
Yes, body. Yes, they passed it.
Okay. So are we not operating under Ordinance 565, or is it changed to, I mean, I know there's been a rewriting, but as far as I know, it has not been adopted, and we're still operating under the library trustees.
You can do what you want, but you can't pay her more, because that check will not come out. If you want to pay her, you're going to have to pay her out of some other funds if you want to do that.
Okay. All right.
But you're not going to get it passed. Her check will stay the same as what it has been as of July 1st.
And there's no way you can give her the 2 weeks vacation.
That's
That
up to
doesn't change the.
If the council wants to
it'd be
change it, I
kinda-
don't think it
I
needs
have
to
a
be.
question.
It'd be kinda
Is
bad,
there a
'cause then we'd have
contract
to
that
give
she
somebody
signed
else
that
that,
included
you know.
that?
That's,
I'm sorry, Mary.
She signed a contract that you offered her 2 weeks of vacation, and it's a signed contract.
No, we sent the information to Ed, and then she met with Ed, and that's why we were thinking it was lost in translation.
Okay.
That Ed thought it was 2 weeks after 1 year. We meant 2 weeks beginning from the day. And that's why we're before you, because we know we don't get to just go change that.
Okay.
So we're asking you to please consider that.
so there's no written contract with you with the board and the library director concerning wages or vacation time or anything?
Just the minutes of December 14th.
Okay, no, okay, because I was wondering if we're going to have some kind of legal problem here if they
Well,
went out and
That's
went
their-
into a
that's their problem.
contract with
Well,
them, but,
Signed it without you okaying it.
yeah, but they didn't. Said you didn't.
We didn't sign
Well,
anything.
there's no contract, it was just minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's no contract.
And it would just, how would the other supervisors, how are they going to feel? I mean, because we've got another new supervisor we just hired recently. I mean,
Apparently, they don't have a board of trustees that can pay them.
yeah, but
So, okay.
it's just that this is no reflection on Susan. This is just we set the salaries. That's the way it is. That's the policy. This policy manual's been that way for
Okay,
a long
drop
time. If we
the
want to
salary.
change the policy manual, then I would say, like, the next council, whoever does that, they want to look into the policy manual and change that policy manual sometime. You know, that's something for them to look at and see
The
what they want
contract
to do.
that she should have been offered, which would have been through our minutes, which should have come to City Hall, which Ed should have, I don't know how it works. What Ed writes down for a contract, you don't go and ask, okay, what did they offer you? And then, okay, I'm not giving you 2 weeks. I mean, there was no discussion with the board what was in the contract. We never saw that. We just assumed, since we passed that in our minutes, that that's what was offered to Susan, and we didn't find that out until 6 months later when we went to look at that. So Ed told
I think
us.
Ed gets a lot of requests
I
from
know.
department heads for salary,
Right.
your requests and things, and
Can I
then he
finish?
just comes to the council and says, okay, what do you want to do? And then with the budget, we work it all out, and
Right.
That's
We
what we
met
settle
with
on.
Ed, and we found out that there was a problem. So he said we could come to you and request that. So I'm just asking you to
just
consider.
recently you went to it.
A month ago, 2 months ago, no, went to Ed, and we said, this was what we intended, that's the way it should be. He said, well, we didn't start it because this is what the employee manual said. And I said, well, this is what we decided. So, yes, there's a disagreement on what the ordinance enforces, that's fine. So he said, come to you and ask, can we have the 2 weeks starting now? It's not going to change a budget. She still has to do the same amount of work she does no matter what, because she's salaried, not hourly. She does her work just to get it done. We still would like that 2 weeks vacation in there. And we're asking for a vote.
I
So,
would be in favor of changing that. Like I said, we just went through this with our public works supervisor, went through the same thing. He didn't get it any earlier, and she's considered a department head still, and I wouldn't be in favor of adjusting that. Again, not saying that has any reflection on her
Sure.
work or anything.
I appreciate that. Can I ask a question? Was that supervisor a union position?
No,
Well, yeah,
No. Yes.
Mark,
he's department head.
Mark is. Yeah, he's like
He's
a working
union.
foreman in the
So
union.
he is a union position with the full benefits of a union, which again, why we're asking her for the 2 weeks, because she's not a union. She doesn't get the full benefits of a union, just the restriction of a union. We're asking for the 2 weeks. You can all vote it down. I'm just asking you to
Yeah, I
take a
know, but
vote.
she does get other things that the union doesn't get, so it's kind of a juggle thing. It's always with management and unions, it's always a juggle deal.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate you listening. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I think we do have a problem with that ordinance. That's why it was going to be revised,
It's going to
whatever.
be, it's going to be brought
happened to
back up
that.
again.
Yeah, because we haven't followed up on it to know. I knew we did get some legal opinions at the time, but
We're
I
still
haven't
waiting
s-
for an attorney general's opinion on.
Yeah, that they said they were going to
Yes,
get.
I have
ultimately.
inquired about the Attorney General's opinion, and I can't get an answer, so it's not at the top of the pile, is my guess. They have their cuts too, short of staff. So, but this had to come up regardless, the vacation and the bump. So I'll be the closer and just ask if this would be on next Monday's agenda for a vote.
It depends on whether the council wants to put it on there.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know how we
Lane?
even change
Are we just talking about just the
considered
2
it.
weeks? You pulled that discussion
Yes.
back about the salary, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're just talking about the 2 weeks vacation. I guess my problem is I wasn't part of this negotiation, okay? I don't know, by you not telling me what's going on, I'm sitting here going, I never negotiated Sue's contract, and I wasn't at your meeting, so I really don't know what took place. All I can do is go by the policy.
Well, if you would look at the minutes of December 14th, the Board of Trustees minutes, it is stated clearly in there.
Well, what I'm trying to say is the difference between what you did in your minutes and what we offered her contract and what the discussion was taking place. I was not part of that. I didn't negotiate her being hired.
No, because that is the Board of Trustees' job.
Right. So I don't know who read her the policy, who said you get 2 weeks vacation after your first year, or whether you told her she was going to get it the first year. I don't know what was said.
In the minutes of the December 14th meeting, it was stated that she would get X number of dollars for a salary and 2 weeks vacation beginning right away. So the minutes are, in fact, an official document.
Again, I'm going to reiterate that the board does not have that authority to change what is on the books. So I
just
can't,
technicality.
unless the council changes that, it's not going to happen. So,
See,
Mary?
we look at it as you have the right to go out and interview as many people as you want to and then recommend someone to us. But the policy manual is the policy manual. That's what everyone's hired at. So until the policy manual's changed, how are we just going to be in the middle of the year say, well, gee, there was a misunderstanding, so we're going to give you more. But this other guy, well, too bad for him. So,
Is your board even aware or ever receive a copy of this policy manual?
every
I have not.
department's supposed to have a copy of the.
Sue, do you have a copy of the policy manual?
I have a copy of policy manual in the office, but obviously I was not privy to that when I was being hired.
Do you have any paperwork when you were hired that you kept that says you get 2 weeks and a 6 months bump? And do you have any documentation on that, or
It was
nobody
just a
knows where it's
verbal.
at?
No, I was offered a verbal package and accepted that package, and then came to find later that I was not going to receive that package
Who were you offered that verbal package by?
by the Board of Trustees.
Okay. Did you at any time have a conversation with the city administrator about?
Not until
being
I
offered the
not until I
position?
started,
Okay.
when I went through orientation.
That just isn't working right.
Well, I would just, it probably didn't happen, I guess, but I would think that the board would go to the policy manual before they offered a position to someone at whatever terms to see that what they want to give them matches with the existing policy manual at the time.
Well, we
I'd need to see
do.
it given to me, wouldn't it?
Well, for instance, we did have the information of how much Wanda was making, the previous director, and we made our decision, and Susan has gotten considerably less money than Wanda, but the 2 weeks vacation was to make that up. And then I told you during budgeting, which I'm sure is on an official record somewhere, that we intended to ask for a bump during the budget hearings. So those are both things. The bump was brought up during budgeting, and I'm sure that's in the formal minutes somewhere. So it's not like we're dumping on this. Maybe I think you were surely listening to me at the time, even though if it was a Saturday morning pretty early. So I'm just wondering if you're going to put this to a vote or how you're going to handle this.
I'm going to ask for a straw vote right now. Barry?
No.
Mary?
Much as I would love to, it goes against policy. No, I'm sorry.
Ron?
I just don't know how you can buck the policy manual without changing the policy manual.
Deb?
Well, I'd have to say no, too, because of the policy manual, but I really do think we need to get that ordinance straightened out and get it clear who has what authority, because she could leave tomorrow and they can go out and hire someone else and offer them something else, and we need to get a
basically
decision on who has what authority to do what.
The Board of Trustees for the library have the right to disperse their own money because we give that to them. They do not have a right to override what the city council does because they are a department of the city. So they're not any different than any other department. So it doesn't make any difference. It'd be the same way with the police department if you hired a new chief.
But apparently they don't understand that, because I know Steve Morency stood up here and had the same discussion and the same thing, and we, it was never made clear, and apparently it hasn't been made clear to the Board of Trustees right now.
Well, we've had the discussions with him also, and we went to the point of getting attorney's opinion, and the attorney's opinion came back and backed it and said the department head, she's a department head, or the person is department head holds that job, and that what we said applies, and they had no problem with whatsoever. Then we said, okay, but the library come back and say, well, we'd like to go to the Attorney General's and get that. So, okay, so we'll hold off on changing the ordinance until such time as you tell us what you got back. Well, it's been almost, what, a year?
It has been a year.
Well over a year.
And so, I mean, at some point, we're going to have to say, okay, fine, we're going to have to go into the ordinance and do something with it then to straighten out and make it very clear once and for all.
Yes.
I know that prior, according to our attorney, I don't have the, if I'd known this was on, I'd have all this in front of me. I don't, we're really shooting blind here because I had no idea what you're going to be talking about. But our attorney has told us that prior to, like, I think it was 1976, something like that, libraries were set up different. And the new ones that are set up after that by the city has direct control. No matter what that ordinance says, that we have, for the salaries and how the department, you've got the money and we give you the money, but it's kind of like with strings attached. We give this to you, but we want you to abide by the regular accounting practices that we do, how we handle the money, how it's divvied out, the, what do you call it, getting the purchase orders and things of that nature, and at first we were having a lot of difficulty with that. Now it's kind of smoothed out to where it's actually starting to work the way it's supposed to work. And we thought, well, maybe we don't have to worry about this ordinance, just leave it the way it is and go about it. But, maybe we're going to have to go in there and make that perfectly clear, I guess. And once that's changed, and there's no question whatsoever.
Another example that would fall into this type of situation is the number of full-time, part-time employees. If the council works on the budget and says we only can pay two full-time and 3 part-time employees for the library, the board may say, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to hire 5 part-time. Well, the council doesn't have that in the budget, but that's a policy of, the full-time, part-time. It has to do with insurance and all those things. So those things supersede what the board would be able to go out and, hire additional employees like that. So
how many,
those are other examples.
How many books you buy, or what kind of paper you use in your printer, or what kind of printers you buy, and that's up to you. You've budgeted that out in your budget. But the regular accounting practices and policy management of the city, that applies. Just like the rec center has got a rec center board in their departments. The levy board's got a board.
And none of those boards hire or fire anybody or make recommendations to hire or fire anybody.
They make recommendations as to who wants to be on the board.
Can I finish? In reference to your addressing the attorney, several of the pages that you received as far as information, specifically from the authority of library boards, coming from someone in the Iowa League of Cities. It just says Jeffrey McDaniel. It doesn't say exactly what his title is. But before...
Our city attorney.
He's our city attorney.
Oh, okay.
But this is another attorney that told us this.
Well, just let me give you this, and then I will be done. And I'm assuming Judy will, too. The following is what I tell new mayors, city council members, and city clerks about the powers of a library board at the MLA sessions held after city elections in odd-numbered years. I have also attached a typical library board ordinance of the type many cities have adopted 35-plus years ago, and which cannot be amended except by vote of the people. By vote of the people. You are trying to change that amendment, not by vote of the people. So that's what I wanted to point out. We are all for, if you want to make changes, then that's fine. Let's hold a referendum and get the people to vote on that. Because when you set up this library board, you set it up with certain ordinances and policies, and the Board of Trustees were charged with certain things that they were supposed to follow through on, besides just approving how the paper's made and what copier you buy. And those things were what the city, the voters of LeClaire, voted on, the ordinance that way. So if you want to change it, we would like you to take that to subject to the approval of the voters of the city. Thank you.
That's the difference, because the lawyers from Des Moines, our bond counsel, is the one that actually give us the opinion that we do not have to go to a referendum. That's where that came from. That may have been from Jeff, but we're talking about the one from our bond counsel that was sent to us, and the question was asked, and that's where the 1976.
Yeah, prior to that time.
It's actually 1975, July 1st, 1975. So if you want to argue that, the reason we went to the Attorney General was to not cause the city any finances in trying to get this settled in a court of law. I just would like you guys to take a fresh look at it so that we don't have to go there. And I know none of you knew what the subject was. You have no paperwork in front of you, and I'm sorry you caught it that way. If you'd like to table something or vote it no, but you will hear from us again. And I thank you for listening and for all your attention.
Lane, I never got to where you're.
Oh, I had said no, I wasn't in favor of.
All right. Well, it's not going to be on next week's agenda.